Welcome back, everyone. This is your nerdy show, and I'm your host, Spoiler Master. Today we're diving headfirst into one of the strangest, creepiest, and most fascinating aspects of the alien universe, the cyborgs. Not just androids like Ash, Bishop, or David, but actual human-machine hybrids and grotesque experiments that push the boundary of what it means to be alive. These aren't just background details either. Each one of these characters or creations has a dark backstory, brutal upgrades, and powers that made them deadly forces in the Alien franchise. So let's break it all down. Here are the 7 deadliest cyborgs in the Alien franchise, their backstories, upgrades, and hidden powers explained. Kumi Morrow. Let's start with one of the most compelling figures, Kumi Morrow, Chief Security Officer aboard the Weyland-Yutani vessel USCSS Maginot. Morrow was born before 2055 and came from harsh beginnings. Homeless, struggling, and disabled with a palsied arm, he was taken in by none other than the CEO of Weyland-Yutani. They gave him more than just employment. They turned him into a weapon. Morrow's arm was replaced with a translucent cybernetic limb, capable of splitting into blades, welding torches, and even deploying tracking discs that could vanish into skin. Think Swiss Army knife meets horror tech. Morrow's loyalty to Weyland-Yutani was cemented after tragedy struck. His daughter, Estelle, died in a fire while he was on the Maginot's 65-year mission. From then on, the company became his life. By 2120, Morrow was battle-hardened and ruthless, more machine than man in both outlook and physiology. When the Maginot crashed on Earth, spilling xenomorph specimens right into Prodigy Corporation territory, Morrow became the lone survivor. He fought Prodigy soldiers, dragged unconscious xenomorphs with one arm, and even stood face-to-face with a live alien, only surviving because he mastered fear. His augmentations made him a juggernaut, his cybernetic arm directly linked to his brain. Morrow wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting to make sure Weyland-Yutani's nightmare cargo didn't fall into rival hands. Cold, loyal, and upgraded beyond reason, Morrow is one of the most dangerous cyborgs in the Alien franchise.
A new stage of evolution.
Where is she?
Where it all began, of course. With the Maker. With Marlowe.
The Guardians of Lethe. Next up, we have something different. The Guardians of Lethe. These weren't lone cyborgs, but an entire group of cybernetic cult soldiers. Born out of the Darwin-era cult, they were fanatics who worshipped the alien as a divine being. Their devotion went beyond simple faith. They submitted their bodies to horrific modification. Through cybernetic implants, biochemical alterations, and conditioning, they became elite warriors. But the most horrifying upgrade was something called embryostasis. Each Guardian carried an embryo purser inside them, but this experimental tech slowed its growth. That meant they could literally walk among xenomorphs unharmed, like living symbols of the cult's twisted beliefs. Imagine an army of zealots with cybernetic weaponry and alien embryos squirming inside them, all devoted to protecting nests and enforcing cult doctrine. Even among them, the numinous stood apart. Shock troopers enhanced even further, deployed in brutal raids and battles. They weren't just fighters, they were living blasphemies, bodies turned into alien temples. When we talk about cyborgs in the Alien franchise, the Guardians of Lethe are maybe the most disturbing because their modifications weren't just technological, they were spiritual sacrifices. Max, the mobile assault exo-warrior. Now let's talk about raw power. Meet Max, or rather, the poor human trapped inside the mobile assault exo-warrior suit. Max wasn't a willing volunteer. Entombed inside a massive mech-like berserker unit, this human was reduced to nothing more than a tool, an empty husk pumped full of synthetic adrenaline and wired into a war machine. The result? A literal xenomorph-killing monster, with a claw and flamethrower on one arm, a heavy machine gun on the other, and the ability to fire heat rays from his eyes. Max could wipe out entire hives in minutes. His armor was nearly indestructible, his strength unmatched. But the price was horrifying. The constant injections of stimulants wrecked his body, leaving him a hollow shell of pain and rage. During missions like the assault on Trayon's mining facility, Max was unleashed as a living weapon. He tore through drones, destroyed a queen, and incinerated nests. But the human inside was deteriorating rapidly. Eventually, during another mission on DS-949, his body gave out. Overdosed and broken, Max died inside the suit, leaving behind a malnourished husk of a man. Another soldier, Brian Ellis, had to take control of the suit to finish the mission. Max wasn't just deadly, he was tragic. A human sacrificed on the altar of Weyland-Yutani's obsession with winning the war against the Xenomorphs.
Emil Zorn. Next is Emil Zorn, a cyborg mercenary and bodyguard who became infamous for claiming he had killed 6 Xenomorphs single-handedly. Unlike Max, Zorn's cybernetic life came from survival. He had been face-hugged, somehow survived a chest-burster, and was left mangled. Doctors gave him a new artificial torso, and Zorn took it further, replacing all of his healthy limbs too, until only about 15% of him was human. He wasn't just a mercenary anymore. He was a walking tank. Armed to the teeth, Zorn accompanied explorer Wellington Frick into a mysterious alien pyramid. Inside, they found treasure, and of course, Xenomorphs. Zorn fought valiantly, covering the retreat of his team and gunning down attackers. But in the end, he was overpowered by a drone, impaled and doused in acid blood. He still managed to kill one of the aliens in his last moments, but his synthetic body was destroyed in the process. Zorn represents the mercenary side of cyborg lore in the Alien franchise. He wasn't a loyal company man like Morrow or a tragic prisoner like Max. He was a survivor turned soldier of fortune who decided that being more machine than man was the only way to stand against the Xenomorphs. And for a while, it worked. Shitkicker. With a name like Shitkicker, you know this one's going to be intense. Shitkicker was a berserker unit used by the Colonial Marines during the disastrous mission to Todd Lab LXI. Like Max, berserkers were cyborg soldiers who relied on extreme augmentation in exosuits to battle the alien threat. Shitkicker was brutal, heavily armed, and designed for all-out carnage. But here's the problem. Berserkers like Shitkicker weren't invincible. On Todd Lab LXI, everything went wrong. The Hive proved too much. The Queen escaped, and the entire mission ended in catastrophic failure. Shitkicker himself was caught in the implosion radius when the station was destroyed. He may have been one of the strongest frontline fighters, but ultimately, he was another example of how even the deadliest cyborg soldiers couldn't guarantee victory against the Xenomorphs. Commander Bort. Another berserker worth mentioning is Commander Bort, also nicknamed Sparky. Like Shitkicker, he was part of the Colonial Marine Berserker program, deployed to Todd Lab LXI. The mission turned into a slaughter, but unlike Shitkicker, Bort actually survived. Along with one other Marine nicknamed Tunnelrat, Bort managed to escape alive. What sets Bort apart isn't just survival, but his role as a commander. Berserker units weren't just about brute force. They needed leadership in the chaos of hive battles. Bort had the cybernetic upgrades, the exosuit enhancements, and the willpower to claw his way out of a mission that killed almost everyone else. In the grand scheme, he may not have been as flashy as Max or as tragic as Morrow, but surviving Todd Lab LXI puts him in the upper ranks of cyborg legends. And finally, we come to perhaps the most horrifying creation of all, the Xenoborgs. Forget human-machine hybrids. These were Xenomorph-machine hybrids. At the end of the 22nd century, Weyland-Yutani decided that the perfect soldier wasn't a man in a suit. It was a xenomorph augmented with heavy cybernetics. The result was the Xenoborg, armed with laser cannons, metal plating, and guided targeting systems. They were slow, heavy, and required time to power up, but once active, they were devastating. A single Xenoborg could kill opponents in seconds, and they were resistant to almost all conventional weaponry. Marines had to deploy heavy ordnance just to stand a chance. But like all of Weyland-Yutani's experiments, the Xenoborgs backfired. On the USS Otabenis, their programming made them attack everything in sight, including friendlies. Prototypes deployed in controlled habitats also failed, with predators cutting through them despite their upgrades. Later, a rogue scientist named Livermore Edmonston created his own Xenoborg army on Blior, producing 21 of them with chromium alloy exoskeletons and grotesque hybrid features. But these too were destroyed by Machiko Noguchi, Yautucha hunters, and the Brave Nation clan. The Xenoborgs are the ultimate nightmare, taking the deadliest species in the galaxy and bolting weapons onto it. They represent the pinnacle of hubris in the Alien franchise, proof that even when humanity tries to control the Xenomorph, the result is always catastrophic. Our nerdy thoughts. So, there you have it. 7 of the deadliest cyborgs in the Alien franchise. From Morrow's tragic loyalty to Max's living nightmare, from the religious fanaticism of the Guardians of Lethe to the grotesque Xenoborg experiments, these stories show us just how far the Alien universe is willing to go in exploring the fusion of flesh and machine. What's fascinating is how each cyborg reflects a different theme: corporate greed, religious extremism, survival at all costs, and sheer technological arrogance. They aren't just characters, they're warnings about what happens when humanity tampers with life, death, and the alien itself. The next time someone brings up androids like Bishop or David, remember, the Alien universe's cyborgs might be fewer in number, but they're among the most terrifying creations in the entire franchise. Which cyborg do you think is the deadliest? Morrow, who dragged an alien across the floor with one arm? Max, the hive-slayer in his suit of pain? Or the Xenoborgs, living weapons born from our worst mistakes? Let me know what you think, and if you'd survive a face-off with any of them.
A blessing. Fascinating. Really fascinating.
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.